In the cloudy mist of earliest Chinese legends, we hear the story of 9 bronze tripods, each one depicting one of China's provinces. Satellite imaging not only proves that many Chinese bronzes were maps, but satellite images also give us the tools to study agriculture, irrigation, production, and aquaculture as depicted with surprising accuracy on many Chinese bronzes. Let's begin by examining this magnificent bronze at the Sackler Collection at Harvard University. The first thing that catches our eye is these birds. They are, in fact, a little bizarre. You won't see this bird. Not here, not China, not now, not ever. They are not real, and never were. Take a short look at them, particularly the long tail feathers, and we will be coming back to them in a minute. Now please take a careful look at these background spirals. These are the familiar spiral plowing patterns we see used in East Asia for thousands of years. They begin by digging a furrow around the property or field line. Next, they work their way to the center. By examining the direction of the spiral, we can often determine the direction of the irrigation flow and from that calibrate the topography of the land. Next is the question of the bizarre birds. I was making some satellite photo surveys of areas of ancient China near Yanshi and came upon these interesting formations that you see here, which to my surprise appear very similar to the rather bizarre plumage you see on the birds of the Sackler bronze. There were even cultivated fields between the feathers in the satellite photo, the same as on the bronze. Just because a design resembles a natural formation does not mean that it necessarily represents that formation. But the resemblance was persuasive enough that I decided to crunch the numbers on it. Satellite imagery is wonderfully convenient because it provides the scale of the image. In this case, 1 inch equals around 200 meters, or about the length of 2 football fields. If we use a scale of 1 inch equals 200 meters, we can arrive at some rather rough but very interesting numbers. The area of cultivated land represented on this bronze represents about 2,000 acres. The crop of choice at the time this bronze was made, around 1100 BC, would have been foxtail millet, Setaria italica, which is a wonderfully productive grain. It is used today in developing countries under harsh conditions to reliably produce over 1,000 pounds per acre. Under the conditions found in China at this time, 1 acre of well-irrigated land, properly cultivated, would easily yield 2,000 pounds, and almost certainly much more. Most researchers believe that the 2 crops a year were normal in this period. Again, using rough calculations, a very conservative estimate would be that the land depicted on only the central part of this bronze would support 2,000 families of 4 persons each, assuming 1 pound of foxtail millet energy equivalent per person per day. Naturally, 2 harvests a year would support 4,000 families. But is this crazy talk? What was happening in China that 1 man would be put in command of over 4,000 families? For 600 years before this bronze was created, the Shang dynasty was building a great empire, particularly part of which was in the area of Yanshi. An area called the Zhou, Z-H-O-U, was kicking a fuss, so the Shang emperor decided to teach him a lesson. At the Battle of Muye in 1046 BC, the Shang were completely defeated. The Shang emperor committed suicide, and overnight the Western Zhou were in control of the massive Shang empire. They literally had more land than they knew what to do with. So the Zhou emperor parceled out large areas of land to his military commanders. And this is one of the bronzes which he gave to one of his commanders, his title to a large area of agricultural lands conquered from the Shang. Because we have reasonable cause to accept that a bronze depicts agricultural land at a ratio of 1 inch per 200 meters, is it safe to claim that this is true for all bronzes? Not at all. We now look at a bronze made within about 100 years of the bronze we were just looking at. Instead of 1 inch equals 200 meters, this bronze uses a scale closer to 1 inch equals 2 meters. This bronze depicts an orchard. The roundels, or bosses, depict trees, and we see them planted in very much the same patterns we use today. When we look closely at this image, we can detect the irrigation setup. Look closely at the lines running between the trees. These are what the ancient Chinese called dog tooth irrigation, about 1 foot wide and 1 foot deep. Keeping in mind that the ancient Chinese foot was closer to 8 inches than what we now know. The larger feeder lines were here. That's what we call wild pig rows, and were about 4 feet wide and 4 feet deep. Because this was an orchard, we know this land was flat, with a good supply of water and controlled drainage. This pattern is still used today, as we see in this photo of a modern orchard outside of Paris. Clearly displayed are also the intercropping, the crops planted between the trees, which served 3 purposes. First, because an orchard normally will take at least 3 years to produce fruit, they'll have the production. Oftentimes, intercropping provides a farmer with an income until the orchard begins producing. Intercropping also prevents erosion and, if chosen properly, will provide nutrients to the soil, which will benefit the trees. In agricultural areas of China, property boundary lines were designated by planting trees, a system called the Fengjian system. Interestingly, this practice has traditionally been claimed to have been created by the Western Zhou after 1046 BC. It would appear that planting trees along the borders of agricultural property started in the 14th and 15th century BC, easily 400 years before the Western Zhou, when trees were planted in developing areas as we see on these pieces, and rather extensively in orchards where they were used as windbreaks to protect the young saplings as they developed. We have not yet been able to determine exactly what kind of orchard this was, but one thing we do know, during the 200-year period this bronze was made, lots of orchards were being handed out. An educated guess might be that these were mulberry trees, producing leaves to the Morck's bomby moth, better known as the silkworm, to produce large amounts of silk at the end of the Shang dynasty. In that case, the intercropping was probably mung bean, charri, or berseem. Other possible crops might have been peaches with ryegrass intercropping, or perhaps oranges with chili or amaranthus. I am an incurable romantic, and I would like to believe that it is possible that the trees here might have been camphor, which was used both as a perfume and a medicine. But that would have been in the Yangtze River Valley area, which is further south from where this was found. Wouldn't that be romantic to give his mistress, instead of some perfume, a whole orchard of perfume trees? So now we have one bronze depicting literally a couple of thousand acres, and another depicting an area of about a city block. The fact is that bronzes depict a very large variety of sizes and types of land.